Welcome to the Q2 2024 Chainlink Product Showcase. I'm Rory Pyatt, Director of Community at Chainlink Labs. We've got a few people joining us today, including VP of Product Gondo, Chainlink Labs Head of Capital Markets Angela Walker, and our co-founder Sergey Nazarov, along with a few users. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the Chainlink YouTube channel to keep up to date with our content. So first off, we're going to jump to Gondo, VP of Product at Chainlink Labs, to touch upon product momentum and updates. To kick us off, Gondo, why don't you give everyone here a brief introduction of who you are, and we can get into some of our key wins this quarter.
Great to be with you, Rory. My name is Gando. I'm VP of Product at Chainlink Labs. I've been at Chainlink for a year, and it's been an eventful one.
Perfect. Well, we'll get into some of the things that you're touching on today. We'll start with our first question. I know Sergey's talked a lot about tokenization, real-world assets, or RWAs. Would love to hear about the work that your team is doing to kind of bring all of that to reality.
Chainlink has really been a leader in the tokenization trend before it was even referred to by TradFi and DeFi as tokenization. For example, we've led in this space and created proof of reserves back in 2021 when the trend of RWAs and tokenization had not really had anywhere near the level of momentum that it has today. But we saw the opportunity back then. We started preparing for it, and we're proud that Proof of Reserves, for example, now has over 30 implementations with various clients in different parts of both Web3 and traditional finance. And beyond that, we're also innovating beyond Proof of Reserves and creating NAV feeds, for example. So in partnerships with various people on the TradFi side, for example, the work we did with the DTCC, and with various asset managers, as well as work that we do with emerging digitally native asset managers for Web3 and tokenization of fixed income, various other securities, including funds. We are helping and partnering with these counterparties to bring the net asset value, which is a very important metric and number for tokenized funds, to bring that on-chain to enable the programmability of these tokenized funds. On the CCIP side, we're enabling tokenized assets to be moved securely and reliably across many different chains. And of course, this has great application on the capital market side and how when capital market participants tokenize assets, how to make sure that these tokenized assets have enforcements on them, the appropriate enforcements, as well as how these enforcements can be implemented and carried out and enforced across many different chains.
All right, Gondo, so you talked a little bit about how Chainlink's been a leader, Proof of Reserves, NAV, CCIP capital markets. Let's dig a little bit deeper into tokenization here. Kind of what are your thoughts on sort of the demand and kind of what's happening around that?
There's a lot of demand, a lot of interest, and it's fascinating that it's across the board from our clients on the traditional finance side, as well as all of our Web3 and DeFi partners. And they're going all in. We're going all in. We've been leading in this space. We want to continue to lead and continue to innovate with our partners. So we're responding to that demand, working more on NAV, and you're going to hear more exciting things to come on that front in the coming weeks and months, where we're helping our partners bring more relevant pieces of data about their assets, about their off-chain assets and collateral on-chain, and making sure that that synchronization between the on-chain asset and the off-chain collateral and an underlying asset, the RWA, that synchronization remain always in sync, and not just between one blockchain and the off-chain world, but between across many different chains. And that's where CCIP comes in. So it's incredibly exciting. We're also, as I mentioned, because we're connecting these things together, a lot of our clients are now starting to not just ask for proof of reserves, but they're asking for multiple of these things because they're additive and accretive to each other to their solution. So for instance, Matrixport is one of the top digital asset management firms in Asia. They've integrated CCIP, proof of reserves, and data feeds to unlock maximum utility for the liquidity of their token, which is STBT.
All right, Gondo. So transitioning a little bit into another, kind of Chainlink product here, which is data streams. I'm sure a lot of people in the community have noticed that there's been some momentum recently around us, around that. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Sure. So we're really excited about data streams. We have had great success with our partner GMX with their V2 on Arbitrum. Streams has secured over 50 billion in trading volume on GMX V2. And our focus now that we have our latency, our performance, securing this value with a great partner, our focus now is expanding. We're now focused on how do we bring this product to many more users, many more protocols that want to innovate in the DEX space with perps on many different markets, on many different blockchains. So our focus in the coming period is expansion, expanding to a lot more chains, which you'll hear about in the coming weeks and months, and as well to a lot of different additional markets. So many different asset pairs, both predominantly on-chain assets, digital assets, as well as RWAs.
All right, now we'll kind of move on to a question really about CCIP and compute, kind of what's going on there and what can people really expect looking into next quarter, Gondo?
Recent wins on the CCIP side that we're really excited to share, that Aave's decentralized GHO stablecoin has integrated with Chainlink CCIP on mainnet after a 100% approval vote from the Aave DAO. Really excited about this one. Aave is a great partner of ours, and we're starting with transfers to Arbitrum, and more will come in time as well. So that's a very exciting development. And of course, more chains are integrating CCIP as their canonical bridge. And a canonical bridge is also referred to sometimes as native or preferred or official bridge. So that's what this is. And most recently, Cello and Mode in this past quarter have integrated CCIP as their canonical bridge. So really excited about this one. And then looking ahead for Q3, we're looking for CCIP to finalize the requirements and the prep we're doing for launch of CCIP v1.5. So this will predominantly enable token issuers to integrate their token with CCIP in a completely self-serve manner. So it's a huge unlock to a lot more adoption for many, many tokens because there's a lot more coming on every day, especially with the tokenization trend. So this is a massive unlock for a lot of token issuers to self-serve on CCIP. And we're continuing to push with chain expansions to get CCIP on more and more chains. So as people think about tokenizing their assets or any activities that they have, they don't have to think about integrating with many different chains. They can pick one chain to launch on, integrate with CCIP, and that gives them access to the liquidity and activity on all of the chains that CCIP is part of.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Gondo. I really appreciate it. You're able to touch on a little bit tokenization, real world assets, what's going on with data streams, and what's going on with CCIP and compute. So thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I will let you get back at it, and hopefully we'll hear from you again soon.
Great to see you, Rory. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. Now we have a message from Sergey on the Q2 wins from the Web3 DeFi space and the capital markets TradFi space.
I think there's a lot of wins that have been happening recently for Chainlink, both in the Web3 DeFi space and in the capital markets TradFi space. It shows how much of our focus is not just on generating a public chain infrastructure, but on generating a single global infrastructure that works across public and private chains. The notable wins in the capital markets have been things like DTCC, 21 shares, the continuation of our work with Swift, and a few other big wins like Fidelity and similar kind of big events in the cap market space. All of these things signal that Chainlink is actually being used by multiple parts of the capital markets. So Fidelity is an asset manager, DTCC is an infrastructure, and some of the other wins with banks are on the banking side. And this is really a sign, I think, of what's to come with Chainlink and CCIP, where it's a useful system across the entire capital markets ecosystem and across all the parties in a transaction. Ideally getting on the same system to define the data of the transaction and to define the movement of the transaction. So this is really what I think we're doing in the capital markets. In the Web3 DeFi space, I think Chainlink is continuing to be the leader in many key ways on proof of reserves, on various types of data, and on other key categories of how DeFi protocols work. And this is something that's thanks to the security that Chainlink has generated over many years in the data part of the protocol. We also see a lot of adoption of the CCIP system, especially with protocols switching to CCIP from other cross-chain systems on the basis of the security guarantees that they find in CCIP, which simply can't be found in other protocols. So this is, I think, one of the biggest developments in the Web3 world.
Up next is Josh, head of BD and partnerships at Matrixport, the RWA technology arm of Matrixport, one of Asia's largest digital asset management companies. Josh will discuss the integration with Chainlink to pioneer the tokenized asset landscape.
Hello, Chainlink community. This is Josh. I'm the head of BD and partnerships for Matrixport, which is the RWA technology arm of Matrixport, one of Asia's largest digital asset management companies in the market right now. We're very excited today to share our integration with Chainlink and how we're revolutionizing the tokenized RWA landscape. But before we get into the integration, let me share a bit more about Matrixport. So Matrixport, we're pioneering a new era of finance by bridging the gap between traditional finance and the digital asset world. Our first flagship product, the short-term treasury bill token, STBT, offers investors a secure and transparent way to earn yields on US Treasury securities. All the tokens are backed by US short-term treasury products. It's a one-to-one USD pegged token that distributes yield interest on a daily basis to its holders. So going through this first product, we've noticed like tokenized assets here, we face a few key hurdles. The first one and the most important one is definitely on building trust. How can we ensure to our holders or give them the confidence that behind each token is an actual asset backing it? Secondly, is liquidity, just making sure that the token can actually be traded in a fair and quick and easily accessible manner. And thirdly, but very importantly as well, how can we ensure interoperability? Different chains have different standards. How can we make sure our token can move across different ecosystems and be used? So by working with Chainlink, we were able to develop a comprehensive end-to-end solution together. And here we were integrating on three fronts. So on the most base layer, we're working together on a custom data feed where we're able to collect a net asset value data of our treasury bill in a decentralized and verifiable manner. And by doing this, we're able to increase the accuracy and transparency of our token. And on top of this custom data layer, we also work together to deploy the industry's first proof of reserve oracle, POR, for our STBT token. And by doing this, we're able to ensure that every STBT minted is always less than or equal to the amount of the dollar value of the underlying treasury bill, just to make sure there's always at least 100% collateralization backing our STBT. And on the third layer, we're also working together on multi-chain, on CCIP, the cross-chain interoperability protocol, which is the industry's most secure cross-chain messaging protocol. By partnering on this, we were able to deploy natively on Ethereum as well as Arbitrum, two of the industry's most used blockchains, and the largest ones by TVL. So STBT is just our first pilot together with Chainlink. We're very excited to work together to expand to other asset classes and continue to push the boundaries of tokenization of RWA. Continue to set new benchmarks for how to tokenize different kinds of assets, and also promote widespread adoption of TradFi investment on chain. Looking ahead, very excited to continue to work with Chainlink. The short-term treasury bill token is actually just our first RWA asset. It's our pilot in this space. Stay tuned for more. We definitely have many more asset classes that we're looking to tokenize and unlock these TradFi investment opportunities on chain for digital asset owners. I'm very excited to pioneer a new set of RWA industry standards and keep pushing our boundaries and continue to promote widespread adoption together with Chainlink. So yeah, thanks again, Chainlink community. Thank you for your time. This is Josh from Matrixport, and stay tuned for more. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, Josh, for that context. Up next are here some cap market updates. Let's now hear from Angie, head of capital markets at Chainlink Labs. To get started, tell us who you are, and we can get into some key wins from this quarter.
Excellent. Good afternoon. Welcome. My name's Angie Walker. I run banking capital markets globally for Chainlink Labs. Been at Chainlink Labs for about 7 months and spent over 30 years in banking capital markets. So it's great to be talking to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time to join us, and we'll go ahead and get started. So kind of the first question I have for you is tell us about some key wins from this quarter.
Oh, sure. Okay. Well, that's pretty tricky. There's a lot to talk about, but obviously we're very short of time. So I'm going to just take a few key highlights that I think are particularly interesting. So let's start with DTCC. We were absolutely delighted to announce the collaboration between DTCC, which is pretty much the largest. It is the largest clearing corporation for securities the world over. We did a very significant project with them called the SmartNav pilot, which basically showcased the use of Chainlink's products, the blockchain abstraction layer and our CCIP cross-chain interoperability protocol for the use of NAV calculations and NAV distribution between DTCC as the orchestrator of that data and a number of very significant buy-side clients, including the likes of State Street, American Century, BNY Mellon, Edward Jones, Franklin Templeton. So very significant project. The reason this is super important to us is we're doing off the back of this, and in parallel with this, we're doing a number of very big projects around golden source distribution using Chainlink's products and services. So watch this space, much more to follow in this use case area. I'd say next, probably very significant again, and off the back of that, in terms of the use case, we went live with Fidelity and Signum very recently. It was announced at 0.0, and that is to take basically to do NAV calculations on a liquidity fund that is a Fidelity International Liquidity Fund, which is distributed by Signum Bank and underpinned by assets that have been provided by an organization called Matter Labs. It was done on Chainlink, so we use CCIP and we use NAV to be able to distribute the valuation of that fund on an intraday basis. It is only a 50 million fund today, but it sits underneath a 6.9 billion fund that underpins it as the overall fund. So there's plenty of opportunity for growth, not just in that fund, but in other funds as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm sure people are excited to hear more about that as things kind of progress. Moving up and kind of with another question I have for you. What is the significance of the announcement with Winia? Can you explain that in a little bit of detail?
Yeah, actually, it's the Winia announcement is part of what I would describe as a really significant trend across a number of jurisdictions. So where we're seeing the use of regulated stablecoins being accepted through the regulators, I think there is a significant appetite across a number of jurisdictions, not just within Colombia, but also we're seeing significant interest in other territories, such as the recent regulatory landscape in the UAE, for example, where they've published their legislation and regulation around stablecoins as well. So the reason the Winia project is so significant for the industry as a whole is what they are taking live. So Winia is a part of the Bancolombia group, which is a huge franchise within Latin America. Winia is the digital asset arm of Bancolombia Group. They have produced a regulated stablecoin. It's 100% backed by the Colombian peso, and they plan to use that for a number of significant use cases. For us, it was a very important flagship because we see our role in the stablecoin world as being very significant. That's because proof of reserve is a very powerful tool within the Chainlink franchise and within our stable of products, because what it does is it gives the consumer significant confidence, not just around the reserves that sit beneath that tokenized asset, that the reserves match the face value of that tokenized asset and are locked in a suitably secure location, but also it gives them the confidence around the fact that the asset hasn't been over-minted, and so they're protected in that way as well. So it's really focused around improving transparency and giving significant consumer confidence as we move much more into the digital currency world. it's a big milestone for them. It's a very big milestone for us, and it won't just stop at stablecoins. It potentially will traverse this use case, and the use of our proof of reserve capability could actually traverse a wide range of different cryptocurrencies beyond sort of, fiat-backed stablecoins. So it's very, very significant. Bank Colombia are launching it initially just in their national jurisdiction. So it'll be available to customers in Colombia, but they have a massive pan-LATAM presence, and they intend to extend its use across the whole region. So again, this is a very significant development in terms of the use of stablecoins in a regulated and controlled way. So it's really exciting, and we expect to see this use case emerging in many other jurisdictions the world over the coming months.
All right, awesome. Well, we were kind of granular talking about some specifics there. As we kind of take a bigger step back, question here: how many and kind of what kinds of capital markets institutions is Chainlink in talks with right now?
Yeah, that's a really difficult question to answer because it's such a broad church. I'm going to try to put it into some basic categories so that I don't spend too much time and not overindulge myself on it. But I would say if you break it down into the sort of traditional banking and capital market pillars, we'll start at the top and we'll talk about central banks and commercial banks and pan-regional type activities. We're doing a tremendous amount of work with central banks and regional banks, and in particular in linking those institutions together as central bank digital currency, both in a wholesale and a retail form, starts to emerge from a production perspective, and as the commercial banks become much more confident and more aggressive in their use of digital currencies, whether that's in the form of wholesale CDBC or tokenized deposits or regulated stable coins, this appetite for these organizations, irrespective of what chain or technology they sit on, to be linked to each other is becoming increasingly important. So if you look at a lot of the CDBC programs that are in flight at the moment, interoperability is absolutely at the top of the agenda. So not surprisingly, Chainlink is also at the top of minds for a lot of these people, because they need to know that when we come to linking central bank digital currency platforms together, that we link them with the most secure and robust infrastructure and technology that they can possibly have. And we absolutely are recognized as the world leader in this space. So we have a very big role to play in the linking of CDBC, in the linking of central banks to commercial banks the world over. And in fact, we've already started a project with one of the very large development banks, global development banks, to actually link some of the central banks together in Latin America. So that's a very exciting first step towards something which we believe will emerge as a very strong use case for Chainlink Labs technology. So we're very excited by that. In the asset management space, so just changing direction completely, I apologize. In the asset management space, as asset managers become more attracted to assets outside of the traditional capital markets world, as they drive more towards things like tokenized money market funds, tokenized fixed income funds, infrastructure, real estate, cryptocurrency funds, the ability or the need to be able to not only validate that the asset value is a true representation of the underlying assets in custody, but the benchmarking of the value of that asset over time is accurate, and also that the quality of the asset is and the integrity of it is retained over its life. So there's a lot of different ways in which we can leverage tokenization and the use of blockchains, not only for representing assets in asset management, but also for automating and streamlining the management of those assets over time. So tokenization of funds, digital transfer agency, asset servicing, many of these functions will eventually be driven entirely from distributed ledger and blockchain technology platforms. And tokenization as a function will become increasingly important within the asset management community. I think it was Larry Fink who said 100% of all asset management instruments will be tokenized within the next 5 to 10 years. So there's two areas. There's the actual asset itself and the value we can bring in the use of smart contracts and things like proof of reserve and NAV calculations, net asset valuation calculations. But there's also the importance of being able to interoperate between legacy and different chains to allow for us to be able to continue to service those assets as they move through their lives. So for us, the asset management space is a huge area for growth, and we've got some really solid products within our stable that are already starting to deliver value to that community very quickly. The two other areas we're working really closely with are with financial market infrastructures. So we're doing a lot of very exciting work with people like Swift and DTCC and Euroclear around golden records, distribution of data across multiple chains, around things like the delivery. If you looked at the Swift project last year, that was very significant, where we took MT500 messages and we integrated them into the blockchain, and we showed how we could drive an entire DVP transaction through an integration between chains and the Swift infrastructure. And of course, that program of work, we very much hope will continue its journey into production, and is a very significant milestone for the industry as a whole, because it shows this sort of seamless and frictionless marriage between existing and massive global market infrastructures and the use of blockchain and digital asset technology. So it's a very exciting development, and it's a very important initiative both for Chainlink and for the industry as a whole. And then with some of the CSDs, we're looking at how we use cross-chain interoperability, not only to be able to move assets between registries, but also to facilitate and to accelerate things like the settlement lifecycle. So there's lots of work that's been done previously. You would have seen things like the DTCC ION project, where they perform settlement acceleration through a single chain. And what we're expecting is, and through the conversations and the work we're doing, is to both collapse the settlement lifecycle to be able to atomically settle once we get CDBC in place to allow that to happen in the securities settlement world, but also to be able to link registries together between central securities depositories to allow for a much more frictionless and seamless transition of registry entries, if you like, in terms of the owners of those assets over time. So I think in the FMI world, I think CSDs are becoming very innovative, are looking at the opportunity for expansion. And I think we've got a big role to play in that with our cross-chain interoperability, and also for the ability to facilitate things like DVP atomically across chains. And then for the for exchanges, I think we have a big role to play. The new digital type exchanges, I think we have a big role to play with respect to data oracles and for connectivity into Web3 and DeFi. I think it's really important because that brings liquidity into new regulated digital asset exchanges from outside of the traditional TradFi world. So I think the FMI world is really interesting because it cuts across our entire product portfolio, from the heritage of data oracles, which is of course where we came from, and we have over 1,000 of those decentralized networks today, as you know, all the way through to DVP using existing industry standards and industry messaging. So it's a very exciting place. And then one final place I'd like to just touch on is in the commercial banking world. And again, this is a lot to do with stablecoins, actually. I think we'll see really big transformation around remittance, around trade finance, around corporate loans. I think there's a huge opportunity around stablecoins and tokenized deposits for significant improvement in things like payment networks. And I also think you'll see some changes in things like treasury management, because by being able to tokenize collateral and move it instantaneously, I think you'll see really big upsurge in things like collateral mobility type use cases. Again, very much needed as a cross-chain type use case, because all of these banks are going to be on a variety of different chains over time. So, central banks, commercial banks, asset managers, FMIs, and then sitting underneath all of that, what we've got are some really deep and strategic partnerships now starting to build with some of the really big vendors in the space, and also with some of the really big global systems integrators. And these are all very important parts of developing the ecosystem and for putting us up, front and center stage when it comes to things like interoperability and proof of reserve and data.
All right. Well, now we kind of hear who some of the people that we're talking to. We focused a lot on kind of what we've done. Or sort of what we're doing presently. But now I'd love to switch over and say, what are you really looking forward to as we kind of get into the second half of 2024?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the thing that we love the most is regulation and legislation to progress, because that's the thing that fuels innovation. Without a shadow of a doubt, within regulated capital markets and banking, we are entirely beholden to that, really. And so I think there's a significant uptick in the progression of the underlying regulatory landscape that supports innovation, both in the representation of assets in a digital form, but also in the use of decentralized and distributed technologies. This is super important to us as an organization, because we want to be pushing that open door with our customers and having them innovate in the knowledge that the investment they're making is very safe and secure. On the blockchain abstraction layer, we've got off to a very good start, because, of course, the blockchain abstraction layer is not just an abstraction layer for blockchains. I'm not sure the name of it is entirely complementary in terms of its capabilities. The blockchain abstraction layer is also a crucial piece of technology which abstracts the customer away from integration into legacy and into existing traditional infrastructures. The reason that's vitally important to Chainlink and to its customers is that migration into a blockchain world is not a binary switch. There's going to be many, many years during which we will have to have blockchain-based technologies and solutions living and sitting harmoniously alongside existing legacy infrastructures. You're not going to be ripping out and replacing RTGSs anytime soon. So my point is, BAL is much more than just a blockchain abstraction layer. It's also an abstraction layer that integrates into traditional legacy infrastructures like Swift and Fix, and there'll be many more of these as we expand out to other clients and other use cases. And we've got some really important developments in the blockchain abstraction layer that are coming up in the next 6 months, which will continue to push forward off the back of projects that are due to go live in the early part of next year. We're trying to make sure that the vast majority of our effort is in driving real world adoption. What I mean by that is, unless it's under exceptional circumstances, we try to avoid getting too consumed by POCs. There are a number of really significant, most of the projects we're working on now are destined for production, and areas where we've already seen that and we will continue to grow are in the use of proof of reserve, in the use of NAV calculations. We've seen both of those go live this quarter. In things like the DVP program, alongside the likes of Swift, we've been working with for a long time. We'll start to see, and we want to drive more in the collateral and treasury management space. And off the back of the regulatory landscape and the use of stablecoins in a regulated form and tokenized deposits in some territories, which are, of course, 100% fiat backed, then I think we'll see much more development in collateral and treasury related use cases. And we've got customers we're working with on that now. Last, but by no means least, and a big shout out to our marketing team as well, because we have no less than 26 industry events in the first half of this year. We've got over 30 key industry events that we are participating in over the second half of this year. It's going to be absolutely marathon type global tour for the team globally. And we've got some really important events coming up. So we've got Cybos coming up in October in China. We've got SmartCom in Hong Kong. We're very excited about SmartCom as well at the end of October. We've got Digital Asset Week, we've got Tokens 24/9, we've got the Abu Dhabi Finance Week. I mean, the list is endless, but these are really important events. They're not all banking capital markets events. Some of them are crossover events, but they're very important because they're part of us building up our ecosystem, expanding the Chainlink family, making sure people in the industry understand what we do, where we're going, the sheer enormity of the resources and the expertise that we're putting into making sure the roadmap and the products are going to meet the needs of that community over the course of the coming 5, 10, 20 years. So the events calendar is not just about us talking to people just at an event to build our pipeline. It's also a crucial part of our own development program and our own roadmap and strategy to make sure we're building products that are fit for consumption in the future. So we're very excited to see that our second half year is as packed, if not more packed than the first half was. Yeah, it's great. We've got so much to do. It's really exciting.
Awesome. Well, Angie, thank you so much for spending some time with us talking about kind of what's been done kind of last quarter, previously this year, and then what you're looking forward to this year. You got a lot of work ahead of you. It's clearly outlined in our last question, so I will let you get to it. Thank you again so much, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Let's now dive into that news from 21 Shares. We're now joined by the head of strategy and BD of digital assets for 21 Shares to speak more about their integration with Chainlink.
I'm Eli. I'm running strategy and business development at 21 Shares. We are the world's largest platform for exchange-traded products of crypto assets with $7 billion in assets under management. Our mission is to give an easy access to crypto assets for traditional finance investors as well as newer investors. We know that blockchain technology is going to reinvent capital markets for a very, very long time. Chainlink Proof of Reserves, in a nutshell, enables transparency for the end investors. For the first time in history, we can have real-time financial statements of crypto assets compared to any other asset classes where you have to wait for the end of the quarter to actually get the financial results of a publicly listed company, right? The whole thesis for us is that crypto is going to become invisible whenever people are going to use web applications, mobile applications, and other type of interaction that they're going to leverage within technology.
Great. Thanks again, Eli, for joining us. And thanks to all of you for watching today's product update. Don't forget to subscribe to the Chainlink YouTube channel to keep up to date with our content. We're always open to feedback on the format, so don't hesitate to reach out to me on Twitter or Discord. Until next time, thank you.